everyone. Oop, forgot to put my lighting up, but let's see how that looks. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the stock market today, and I just realized I am all out of my whack because it's been a while. But I do need to put the card up so you guys can vote in next week's fluctuation. And you may notice that this has actually been 2 weeks since the previous stock market update. I have been slammed with homework and other school activities, and that has stopped me from keeping up with my streaming schedule. So hopefully I'll be able to get back into the swing of things, but I am not going to make any promises due to the fact that next week I do actually have 3 tests, and I also, just with senior design constantly being something I'm working on, it it takes up a lot of time. So I did just add the poll for next week, and you can go up in the top right corner and click on that. It'll pull out the poll so that you can vote, and hopefully the rest of this stream will go a little bit more smoothly. So, as you can see, I have the stock market up, and we left on an interesting note. Thomas was starting to gain some traction, and so I wanted to make sure that I got a stock market update out today so that we can hopefully get back on track, but we'll see how that goes. So let's get right into it. So the voting percentages, maybe because there was a little bit more time to vote this time, but there was a decent turnout. But we will see how it played out. So red received a 25% of the vote. Yellow received a 0% of the vote. Green received a 25% of the vote. Blue received a 25% of the vote. And 12 received a 25% of the vote. So you can see that in terms of the entire market, everybody except for yellow had an okay day, but what we need to find out is if that day was actually as good as it seems. So let's see what the random market factor is going to be. We will get a number between 0 and 40, and we will see what that turns out. And it looks like it's going to be a great day in the market. So that is saying that we have an 11 as the market factor, and you can see that yellow did go down by 11, but what we see is that everything else went up by 14 points. So that's pretty significant, and you can see that 12 is now up over 200 again. That'll mean that Dan is up in the 200,000s, but we will have to see how the rest of the market has, the rest of the competitors have played out. So I'm going to hit new market, zero out the market factor. We're going to copy these numbers, put them into the market trends, and now we can see that 12 is doing its normal oscillation about 200, and we are continuing this dance of competition for who is the next best stock, but blue seems to be breaking slightly away. So if we go to the scoreboard, we can see that I have risen to now 900,000. Thomas, on the other hand, it seems that he didn't move much, and I'm curious about that because I guess I'd have to check with the actual values that are on the Contestants Trends page. I do see that James is up here in 4th place, and Dan, as I mentioned, is now in the 200,000s. But for the first time in a long time, it seems that the update we just did not change anything in the order of the rankings right now. So I'll go ahead and just go through the actual process of clicking sort largest to smallest, but as you can see, that did nothing. So everybody changed, but because the entire market generally went up and not that many people were actually invested in yellow, there wasn't an actual exchange of who was on top. Now, I am interested to see if Thomas has increased his total assets. So let's go to the Contestants Trends page. We're gonna go just one by one, and so one thing I do want to mention is that it I'm trying to work out a way that I can do something for school and also be streaming. And what I think is going to be the solution to that is that I actually have a project for my materials class, and I'm hoping that I can actually incorporate artificial intelligence into the materials project. And by doing that, I would possibly be able to actually stream that data collecting just for sake of keeping that data and visualization available for further report writing, but also because that would allow me to kind of knock out two things at once there, still being true to streaming if possible, but at the same time not neglecting my classes if at all possible. So I'm trying to find James here. James is almost over that 200,000 mark, so that's interesting. Um, and then Khalil, as always, is doing pretty good, but never as good as Dan is, except for on various occasions. I think he was on top near the start. Let's see, was he ever above Dan? Because there we go, there we go. For week 10, Khalil was actually in first, and then actually James was up in first in week 10. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Oh no, okay, I was in first, but Khalil was doing better than Dan in week 10. But that's interesting to see that it's kind of been 12 lifting the load for those two fellows. Um, we have Mr. Positive, and then OC, and the final three, the ladies, Carly, Megan, and finally we have our lonely caboose, Even Steven 2.0. Uh, but we can go check out the contestants' trends. So we do see that Thomas is still continuing his upwards trend. Although I will say that this specific week, it seems that I have a slightly uh, steeper slope than Thomas has. So it's not necessarily an exponential gain away from the rest of the pack as it was before, but it is still consistent. So I'm satisfied with how that is playing out. We do see that James had a nice week, but he has been having a nice couple or a nice few weeks back from week, I believe that is 17. That is 0.18, but I think there's a 0.0. That's 0.1. Yeah, so I think week 0 was zero point 0.1, so 0.18 is week 17. But you can see that James has been fairly consistent, but has been doing better in the past few weeks. Whereas Dan has been fairly consistent since the beginning of time. So that is going to be pretty much it. I don't want to drag this on too much longer, and I do need to crawl back into the hole that is senior year college homework for mechanical engineering. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you for sticking around in this slight hiatus. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to make any promises on any strict schedule for streaming. It's just going to be, if I can, I will. I'm not sure that anything will happen this weekend because I know that there's a football game, I have homework, and it's also a bunch of Halloween parties, I think. So it's gonna be a long weekend. But I want to thank you guys for coming out, and I am going to be signing off. So thank you and goodbye.